All right, hey, thanks for tuning in for this stream. On Wednesdays, I work on Drupal 10 or Drupal 9 readiness, and a lot of that involves PHPStan Drupal or Drupal Rector, and I'm going to be back working on PHPStan Drupal today. On Friday, I did some work to add coverage for some missing items for upgrade status. We made it so that way we could detect the deprecated annotation checks for context to context definition. But I managed to break something along the way. The local gov team reported that anonymous classes are broken. So if we look at the source code, you see here that this extra field object extends blah, blah, blah. It's an anonymous class. And this is broken when trying to do a reflection check. So I need to fix this up for them really quick before I keep on moving on to more of these items here. So where that worked is if we go into this base class, yep, that's right, I made a base class for all of this. What we need to do is say if node is anonymous. Actually, we should do two checks here. So if the node is anonymous or node is abstract, we can skip. Because we don't, with an abstract node isn't going to have the annotation. So if it's anonymous or it's abstract, let's skip it. Not try to process it. Let's just check some more inside of here. If it doesn't have an annotation, it's skipped. And then has match. I wasn't sure if this part should go into the base class or not. But so this is the fix. We need to check if it's anonymous or abstract. What we should also do is write a test, because I didn't have test coverage for this, and that's when it broke. So how it broke is it just tried to analyze anything that's an anonymous class. So let's do PHPStan fixtures. Let's try this out here. Function PHPStan fixtures thing with anonymous class void. Say foo equals new class extends block base. And then we're going to implement the build and say return an empty array. So this should be enough to replicate and break. This is actually a pretty good test, since block-based is also an annotated plugin. Let's see, what is this complaining about? Class anonymous. Oh, because it requires the constructor. What is the constructor? Let's see. Configuration, plugin ID, plugin definition. All right, so that's easy to just fake. There we go. There. All right, so let's real quick comment this out and let's run the test. Where did I put this? So rules, sure. Let's run. This was the last run I just ran. It runs all the tests inside this rules directory right here. Well, that didn't break. Because that's sourcing the one file. Let's look at, so I'm going to copy the file name. something should be analyzing this test. It's this test extensions report error. Run it. So technically, the rule should cause parsing this file to crash because it's trying to look up the reflection for an anonymous class. And hopefully the test reproduces it. Otherwise, I gotta do a blind commit. It's taking a while. So let's do it this way. Let's make a new branch, get new branch. That is issue 194. Fix anonymous. Diff. All right. Since that's, let's do git commit AV. Add test to verify anonymous classes can do. Add test to verify anonymous classes work. That's a horrible, horrible commit message. Add test to verify anonymous classes are not reflected. Here we go. So let's push that. Git push u, or so u does tracking, or tells it to set the upstream rather. So when you go do a pull, it knows what to fetch from with your different remotes. GitHub PR creates. Let's rename this PR fix. Ensure anonymous classes are not reflected. That would have been a better commit message. Let's edit the pull request body. We'll say that this fixes 194 and submit. There we go. GitHub already updated the UI to show this. That test does not want to run for some reason. That is just hanging up. So we'll let the GitHub runner find it, unless that kind of proves. Let's run this and see if it goes through. I'm kind of concerned why this won't work. All right, well, we got one failure. All right, we've got test failures. This is what I was looking for. All right, anonymous class, blah, 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 was not found. So this is just not cooperating. And let's do, now we'll do git diff, commit, v, add fix. So I can push that up. So we made a commit that proved that it didn't work, or rather that a bug was present, which did cause all the builds, most of the builds to fail that run PHP unit. Now we pushed our fix, and we should verify now that it's actually working. So the goal will be that these start turning up green, and then I can merge it and tag a release. I'm not sure, I'll probably tag a release right away just so the fix is out, but I'll wait to see if I can fix anything inside of upgrade status. So that goes. Let's start looking at some things here. I think this one could be pretty easy to do. So sometime in Drupal 8, you had to set, or before, blah, 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 blah. Before, with functional test via browser test base, it would set the theme that should be installed and it defaulted to classy, but now that's been removed. So now in all of your different functional tests, you have to specify what theme should be used. It doesn't make any assumptions. I don't know why the default wasn't just set to Stark period, but this way it can be set to Stark, or if you need core markup, you can set it to stable to get some markup. But basically we need to set up a PHPStan analysis rule that checks to see if default theme is null inside of a test class. So we should be able to do that. I made the issue here. All right. So let's see. Oh no. We still have some test failures. That's not good. Was not found while trying to analyze it. Oh boy. So I really do need this test to work. So that way I can, let's see. Class not found. Let's see if we can find. So deprecated annotation rules base. Let's look at the stack trace. Line 51 and get class. So wait, if the node is anonymous or is abstract, it's supposed to return an empty array, but here it's not. So it's even calling in the process node. So let's see. File analyzer is calling process node, which is calling into the reflection provider. So why isn't this working? It's supposed to check. So let's click. I'm going to click on the debug. And we'll just see if this gets hit. I don't know why this test in particular. All right, here we go. We hit here, fine. So node, what's the name? Anonymous. All right, so we have the anonymous class. Implements, extends. So yep, so it does extend something. The name is not null because it is an anonymous class. The flags are 0. Flags. So let's see, is anonymous. Well then, the name isn't null. Whether the class is anonymous or not. Well, that doesn't work out. Shoot. Let's do it. Let's go. Let's see if this is a bug anywhere. Say is anonymous. Search the issues. When closed. Anonymous class are named in printable. Let's see. Does any of your code dependencies give anonymous class a unique name or similar? So in the broker, it's in PHPStan. Okay, so PHPStan is fixing it. So let's see what Rector fixed. Let's see, making a note. So is anonymous doesn't work because PHPStan gives it a name. All right, actually, I should comment that on the issue. While reading this issue, I found out why the name is null check didn't work. PHPStan gives it a name. All right, so we know why it's not working. Let's see what did they do inside of Raptor. Original node. Oh. So that's in their printer. They set it to null. That doesn't help. Let's see. Workaround for anonymous classes. So if the name starts with, that's what we're going to have to do. But let's see here. Broker. So get anonymous class reflection. Class node, and it sets the name eval to pretty print. Self anonymous classes with the class name. So, okay. So we need to do a check. So let's first, we'll keep this as abstract because that's a good thing to check out too. PHPStan gives anonymous classes a name. So we cannot determine if a class is truly anonymous using the normal methods from PHP Parser. What was that commit? So let's look at the PHPStan broker so I can reference it. So PHPStan is bundled inside the var, the broker. Let's open the broker and see if we can just find that string. No. What method is this? Get anonymous class reflection. Return reflection provider, get anonymous reflection. Better reflection provider. There we go. So if is in trait get reflection name, class name, no, there it is. So let's go and copy the reference. We'll say @C. So let's see. In trait get reflection name. So class node. So it gets the class name. Set attribute. Oh, here we go. Here we go. All right. Class node get attribute. So let's try this. Node get has attribute. If node has attribute and node get attribute anonymous class is equal to true. All right, let's try this out. I'm going to run the debugger again. And maybe for some reason when running, I've noticed there's issues when running PHP unit for some of this stuff inside the PHP Storm runner versus in the command line. And maybe that error was just part of it. So class name. So return. So actually, we don't need the class name yet. We need it here. So I think this is the proper fix. Yep. I wish this had like a constant to go off of, but we don't have that available. So let's do, what is it? Anonymous class. Get commit AV. So I use A is for all changes and V is for verbose, which lets you view the diff inside of the message. Check the anonymous class attribute. So now if we push, we should see an actual fix come out now. And then we'll work on some of the Drupal 8 to Drupal 9 upgrade helpers. While we wait for this, so again, have the issue here. To just show what I'm talking about, let's go to browser test base, default theme. So by default, the default theme is null. And what we need to do is basically assert that when we're inside a class that extends browser test base, this property is not null. I think we can do that, and we're going to find out how once this passes. All right, good. We've got green check marks again. So once this goes through, then I can merge it up, and I'll at least tag a release at the end of the stream for PHPStan Drupal to fix this regression. All right, so that's going to pass. So I'm going to get back to the main branch. I'm pretty confident that I won't have to switch back. So do a new branch called GitHub 191 default theme browser test base. So what we want is, let's go to module with tests, source. Do not make a functional test here. Let's create a new directory called functional. I'll make a new file, default theme test. Sorry. We'll add it to version control. So namespace, Drupal, tests, module with tests and functional. So we got class, default theme test, extends, browser test base. And just do a public function test foo. We'll just say this Drupal get. So we'll have this default test, and the idea here is that it will throw an error. We want it to throw an error because it doesn't have a default theme defined. All right, so this merged. I'm going to go ahead and do a squash merge since I don't need these 3 commits. We'll say it's these 2 items here. So let's do the squash, delete the branch. I'm going to go pop over to that issue. It was closed. A new release will be rolling out shortly. Thanks for letting me know about the bug. Let's comment. So I'm going to pin that issue so that way I don't accidentally delete it or close it, which I probably still will. So I am very trigger happy with my Command W for closing tabs. Okay, let's get back to this task where we want to verify that browser test base default theme is populated by child class. So let's go create a test, and this will call. Let's see. Where should we add this to? So we had it in here for this deprecated rules. Now let's just put it in here. I'm trying to also clean up PHPStan as I go, or PHPStan Drupal. So let's create a test base. So let's call it a rule test base.php, because this can all be consolidated. Let's just copy this top part. So this will be an abstract class called rules. Abstract class rule test base extends analyzer test base. We'll copy this. And we'll say test rule and do a abstract public function. rule fixtures. Let's see, can we do it this way? All right, cool. I wasn't sure if that would actually work. So we're going to have a test base that has, the single test, which goes through, runs a path, checks the counts, and verifies the error messages, which is essentially what all these tests do, but I've never abstracted it into one because I actually had them run a few different tests. So maybe, let's see, this analyzer test base, entity test class. So this tests a few different items, which again, path, count, error messages. Let's move this. Let's move this into analyzer test base actually, and rename it. Oh, no, hold on. I'm not trying to do that kind of a huge refactor right now. So while I'm going to make a to do for myself, to do off this switch, to do move into analyzer or just not. Sorry. Just say that for a follow-up. I'm just going to copy this. We're going to create a new rule called browser. So browser test base default theme rule test. So I'll have to create a rule that does that. And let's see, I should have a happy path. Wait, shoot. Call it default missing. So we'll call this a missing default theme test. So we have one that's missing, and we will have one that's not missing. So default theme equals Stark. And the idea is that this passes, the other one does not. So let's adjust our fixtures. So was it modules? We had modules with test, source, functional. This will be the missing. And this will be the default theme test. And let's go copy the change record. So say browser test-based default theme is required. Oh, when using an install profile that does not set a default theme. That might be kind of hard to do, but we'll copy this in. Yeah, I'm not sure. So what this is inferring to is let's find usages of default theme. So it will read from the profile storage config, it's system.theme and the default one. If you have an install profile with a theme. So I'm just going to go and let it error on everything. And then as people say, hey, it's broke my site, which has profiles, we'll figure out how to get that to work later on then. I'd rather go for it just works versus over engineering. Let's rename this to be file data. And let's test rule. We'll just name it that. And let's run it. Now we should get one failure because there's no error, and then this should pass because, well, there's no rule. All right, there we go. So let's go ahead and start writing the rule. So deprecations, I guess that's a deprecation. It's not deprecation. It's under classes, Drupal. What would we want to call this? Let's do directory and we'll do tests and we'll call it the browser test-based default theme rule. I'm going to copy the namespace over. So we've got a final class browser test base. Is it extends or implements? Implements rule. Let's add the method stub. So get node type. This will be the interesting one. Oop, wrong file. I'm just trying to copy over some of the use statements. So we need to figure out the node type that it runs on. And to do this, I need to see what is available in here. So it's not an expression, it's a statement. Property. So constructs a property list node, but what's property? Or like identifier. So property is public, is protected, is private, is static. So I'm guessing it must be on this. So let's go ahead and do return node. What was that? Statement, right? Statement and then property class. So I think this is what we want to run on. Let's do return empty array. I'm going to just put a breakpoint here and right click on this and do debug. Let's see what happens. Whenever we hit this stuff, I never have any idea on which way to go. So that's one reason I like to write the test first, because then I can just run the debugger. So let's see, node that's in the class. Actually, since we're here, class statements, class method. So it might be inside the statements there. It didn't even catch. Let's see, name test foo. Oh, shoot. We can't do it on the property because if the property doesn't exist, you can't throw an error. So it has to be on the class. Duh. That would make sense. So let me copy this here. So we need to run on a class. And let's see. We know that it has to extend something and it has to have, so we know that it must extend something else. So let's just start here. Let's do the debug. So we need to find if the property is missing. And we also need to see if this didn't even oh, dang it. Well, this wouldn't catch because I didn't register it yet as a rule. So way to go me on forgetting kind of like the whole basic part. So rules, this is under Drupal and tests. Namespacing, I don't even know. I guess, I don't know. I've got everything everywhere in a mess. But now that it's being registered and I do the debugger, it will actually get triggered. So, all right, there we go. So before the property wouldn't have worked because that's the whole thing, is it's missing the property. The only statements were test foo, and here it would have two statements, default theme and test foo. So we need to, so we have the node. What's in the scope? Let's look at the scope. So reflection provider. So namespace. So we need to make sure that we're actually extending something that extends browser test space. So let's see what the scope can do for us. So get the namespace, get the class reflection, get the type, assign variable, can access content, can access property. I wonder if this, let's try that. Let's just see what happens here. Do default theme. Let's look at the scope and its structure. So, all right, so let's step in. Type error. Scope can, mutating scope can access property. Argument 1 must be of type property reflection string given. Well, all right then. So property reflection. So that's not what we want. Let's look at the scope. So get file is in trait, get trait reflection, get function, function name, get namespace, get parent scope, get defined variables, has constant, get property reflection, type. So, all right, so let's try this. Let's do type equals scope get type in the node. And then it was scope get property reflection. Type with property was type, and the property name is default theme. That can access property. So that should now method expects PHPStan reflection null given. So if test is equal to null, that should satisfy this part. Expects PHP node expression given. So the type wants an expression. Get native type? No. Shoot. Resolve name. Get type from value. What does this do? Mutating scope. Constant type helper. Get type from value. If is float. If is array. Array builder get array. That's not it. Is in class exists. Well, shoot. So this wants a type, and this to get the type wants an expression, but we have a statement. So maybe, let's look here. Let's look at the expressions. There's nothing here. All right. So I need to figure out how I can know that this doesn't seem to be going where I want it to. So let's just do class reflection equals scope get class reflection. Tried this before and I'm pretty sure it doesn't work because we haven't entered in the class scope yet. So we don't have the reflection. And that's why in this base class over here, we have to go find the reflection ourselves. Yeah, so it's null. All right. So what we could do is we need to make sure that we're in a test. So I guess what we can do is get the namespace names. So let's do that. So no namespace parts, so node get nodes node namespace name. That's not entirely it either. So we know that tests go in Drupal, test, module name, test suite. So we can check that. So namespace parts. All right, so we can do this part here because we know it's class like, namespace name if using name resolver. We know this is coming in. I guess though, let's just do namespace name, and if for some reason this doesn't exist, so if sets the property if name instance of name that has parts. So we'll say if it's not an instance of return empty turn. Let's do so if see, so that would have to be we have Drupal test module functional. So if this isn't there, if count namespace name is less than 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, we return 0. So I think we can do that. And so if the count is, let's just, I want to put it all in here. So if the count is less than 4 and namespace name 0 is not equal to Drupal, that's one too many equal signs. Namespace name 1 is not equal to tests. And we need namespace name 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. So 3, we need 3 not equal to functional, or namespace name 3 not equal to functional JavaScript, because it also affects functional JavaScript. No idea if this is going to work, so let's just dive through it. So if the namespace name has less than 4 items, oh shoot, when you do parts, crap. So namespace name parts equals namespace name parts. I need to update all this because it is pointing at the wrong thing. So the idea is that we get the names. It says it'll always evaluate to true. Well, we're going to have to hope that name resolver is always set. Name resolver is a node visitor that can be attached, which sets that value. So we're going to just have to assume this will always exist. Cannot access property parts. Oh, all right. So count namespace name. Result of blot is always true. We'll give it an and. All right. So if there's less than 4 namespace, we bail out. If the first item is not Drupal, we bail out. If the second one is not test, we bail out. And then finally, if it's not functional or functional JavaScript, we bail out. All browser, all functional and functional JavaScript have test. Test in Drupal have a deterministic namespace. Use that to see if we have a browser test browser test-based test. What I want to look at now is WebDriver test base. Does extend browser test base. All right, so let's do the debug. We'll still have to find a way to see if it has that value, which I know in Drupal Rector, there's tools to do that. All right, so it did pass over. We're here, that evaluated. Mutating scope, scope context, node scope resolver. So there's a namespace. Dynamic constant names, that's not it. Reflection provider. Let's look at the mutating scope and what we can do here. So let's hide anything let's hide properties. Let's hide constants. And hide anything protected or private. So the context doesn't have us in a class reflection yet. So has constant name is anonymous function. So key, this get no key. Key node get attribute. Do we have that as an attribute even? Attributes. We don't. That's the key. The get type, this resolve type. Exit smaller than, greater than, equal is set. Boolean or not. All right, so we don't need to return that type. Is in class name. Enter class method. What does this do? So this will enter in. What about enter class? Wants the class reflection, which we technically don't have because we haven't entered the class yet. So what can we do? Let's see. So class method. So this does an inspection on the constructor. That doesn't help. Let's see. Classes. require parent constructor rule from their class method. Again, that's not it. So class extends, node extends to string is not equal to the default plugin manager. This goes through all the statements. And we can't just go through the statements. We need to get the reflection. So I guess that's just the next step, is to get the reflection. So we need to, I guess, borrow the same thing from the base where we inject the reflection provider, but I really feel like there's got to be a different way to do this, a better way, but I'm not even sure where to start looking. So rules, classes, class attribute rule. Statement is class like. I never knew that. So class like, which, yeah, we actually want it to be class, which we have, because we don't want just class like. Hey, thanks for joining in. This attributes check. Oh, what? All right, maybe this is it. So let's look at attributes check. Reflection provider check. Required target. Class attributes rule. Attribute target class. What does this mean? Oh, shoot. Attributes. It's talking about PHP 8 attributes. So this is not what I necessarily need to look at. Class constant rule. So I'll look here. So reflection provider, again, is getting the reflection provider. Scope, resolve type by name, class. So maybe I can do this here. So class, we get the node class. So let's try this class type, which class is actually just the class like. All right. So for anybody who's just tuning in, what I'm trying to do is analyze these two files. And we need to throw an error if this default theme is not provided. So this missing default theme should throw an error because it doesn't provide this value. And we actually need another test that extends default theme. So let's call this extends default theme test, extends default theme test. So we need to actually analyze this one as well to make sure that it doesn't throw an error. So let me go to that test. Well, I've got my debugger running so I don't forget, because I still need to go through that. So the extend default test should not error either, because it should inherit from its parent. So, all right, class type, let's step in. Throwable, because of course. Get resolve type by name must be of PHP Parser node name, statement class given. All right, so that should be just node name. Because name extends node abstract, and it's not it. Oh, come on. Node identifier. extends node abstract. Jeez. All right, so we need to get the name of the node. Node name. PHP Parser node name. That's in here somewhere. So node name is the node identifier. Oh, namespace name. Great. So that's actually this. Bum, 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 bum. All right, let's rerun the test. I know when working on Drupal Rector, there was a method they provided, which was powered by PHPStan's work, that allowed you to evaluate a value on a class by reading the code. So I'm sincerely hoping we can do that here. So name, original class. Great, we're here. If this is in class, return new object type. We got class type, properties. So it has no properties, but maybe just nothing was fetched yet. So let's stop the debugger. And what was it? It's called class type. Resolve type by name. Type with class name. This was, oh boy. Oh, object type. Okay. So let's do assert class type instance of object type. So class type to string, traverse, to array, accepts, can access contents, can call methods. Get method, get property. All right, let's try this. So get property takes a string, so default theme. We have our scope. Let's do test equals. Let's see what happens. A lot of see what happens. Big surprises everywhere. But this will help people not have their tests randomly crash on them when they get to Drupal 9, as I've had happen. Damn it. Missing property. Oh, because it's a typo. So let's go here, and we know we hit it. So let's turn off the breakpoint for the previous one, and I'm just going to step through it this entire time. Because I'm assuming get property is going to traverse through all of its ancestors or parents. Yeah. So this get unresolved property prototype, get transform property. This in class. Can access property? No, because we're not in a class. So that's great. Description. If is set. No naked class reflection. Properties. Oh, those are property reflection extensions. This is the cache parent class. All right, great. So it does have the parents in there. So if the naked does not have that property, okay. Property reflection, declaring class. Where's name? Name, file name, reflection document. All right, so here's the reflection for the parent. For the declaring class, PHP doc, there's none. Type is null. Reflection. Implementing class is, okay, this is stop. Ancestor. So if ancestor is not null, resolved class reflection. So property, so it went to the ancestor. Template type map. What does this do? Return transform property. Oh. Readable type. What is this? String. Writable type is string. Return new. This resolve. If there's a way to parse out the modules list from the ancestry, it is possible. Well, not in here because we're not actually loading the class. For that, you have to, and it's a protected property, so we'd have to extend the class. For anyone who's curious, let's take a quick detour. So on setup, you see here that boot kernel. So one thing that it basically does this, assert post condition. So it gets the current class name, and while there is a class, it checks if the property exists of modules, and then merges the values from the parent class, and then sets the class to be the parent class of that class. So it goes in recursion, or not recursive. It just does a while loop to call all of the parent classes to collect values. This only works in inside the class because it's protected. So yeah, it's not using reflection all the way. It is something that could be done, but I think we're on to something here now. So test resolved. So let's do assert test instance of resolved property reflection. Test. Can we get the value? Get. Oh. Can change type after assignment. Get declaring class. Is private. Is deprecated. Is internal. Is writable. Is readable. This is not helping out. I guess this is what we'll have to do is declare. Let's rerun. And resolve property reflection. Test. So the declare is a class reflection. So I guess what we could do is see if the declaring class is browser test based, and if it is, that's an error because we know it shouldn't be working. Or I guess then we know that if the declaring class, but that still doesn't prove that it's not empty or not. So we need to scope, get value, property reflection. We did that. No, that just did get the property. Although I guess class type get property is probably the same. What does this do? Object type, get unresolved prototype. What if we can do it in the scope? Get property reflection, mutating scope, has property, type with property, get property. Yeah, so that's like a shortcut. Which I guess we could just do. So it's default theme. Let's say property reflection equals here. So this should be the same difference now. I want to check something out. So let's go to the PHPStan Symphony. No, what is it? When all else fails, look at the examples. So PHP unit doctrine, Symphony, web Mozart is assert. Yeah, let's just start here. So source type. No, this adds the type. Rules for PHP unit, assert rule helper. Let's find anything in here that searches for class. That's not in there. So I just want to try to find anything that might. So this is on the return type. So that just returns the class. Do not extend. All right, let's see. So namespace name broker has class reflection. So this just checks if the parent class name is there. What if we did? So if we did class type get class reflection, reflection get property, that's going to return a property reflection. If we did get native reflection get property. All right, let's try this out. So we got test 1 equals reflection get property default theme and scope. We have test 2 equals reflection get class get reflection get native reflection get property get default properties. Let's do default theme. And test 3 is reflection get native get properties. All right, because I want to know what's going on in here. And github.com rector somewhere in here, rules node analyzer. I'm not going to be able to find it in here. Param analyzer, class analyzer, node get attributes, the parent node. If it's new, is anonymous, get the name. I'll never find it in there. All right, let's go backwards. Test 3. This has statement property, props, property. What's the attributes? Comments, array string. So let's try to see name, backup, and as default. So I guess maybe that could be it. That's in test 3. Properties filter equals null. For filtering desired property types, it's configured using property type constants. Better reflection. So root user, attributes, default is null, attributes. Okay, before I go that far, let's just make sure. Yep, so missing default theme test. So I guess what I should do, or let's go through it first. Test one is what we have for the get property, which should be the same as the property reflection. Actually, it's not. So property reflection is a resolved. Test one is PHP property reflection. So declaring class tells us who declared it. Declaring trait, PHP doc, type. There's the actual reflection. Is there a way to, there's the reflector. And this is the static cache. Promoted, declared at compile time, the node, the props. So default is null, which I guess what I need to do is stop looking at the one where it's missing and debug the one where it's present, so that way I know what it looks like when we have the value. So let's do that. So test one, PHP property reflection. Type is string. So let's check there. So to check. Let's do test one, get type. Native type, is that what? Readable type, that's not. This one, type if string. Because now I don't remember what the other one had. The reflection, better reflection, the node, props. So it has, okay, so default has a value. So let's try that. Let's see if we can do, and so this is test one, get. Is that what it actually assumes to always return is property reflection, which could be, which is an interface. PHP property reflection has all these other parts. So let's do that. Let's do assert test one instance of PHP property reflection. So we get to type hinting. So test one get native type, native reflection, deprecated description. Let's get the native reflection, get value. Goodness. All right. So let's do test one value equals that. While I'm in here, let's look at test two. Which looks like we're going to end up in the same place. Test three is interesting because it gives us everything, but it also brings us back to that adapter. So I feel like that might not be getting us anywhere. Okay. This test one value, I'm hoping has what we need. Call method get property on class reflection or null. And by the fact that that's hanging, it makes me think that something's broken. Okay, so test one throwable. Property is not accessible because it's protected. Let's restart. So native T, again, another error. All right. So let's do assert reflection not equal to null, just to get rid of some of these errors. Test1 native equals test1, get native reflection, assert test1 native not equal to null, just to get rid of some of these errors. So if we did test1 native set accessible true. That's right. Somebody opened an issue for this that in PHP 8, like reflection shouldn't error whenever it's not accessible. So it's a protected property. So that's why it's throwing an error. And somebody said like that's silly when you're doing reflection to cause errors. Because the whole point is you're doing abstract processing most of the time. This still feels like there's got to be a better way. Test1 value is null. Great. Node props default has a value. It's not. So get value. That's get better reflection. So that went down the rabbit hole. So this didn't work. So test1 get so this didn't work here. If we do test1 native get, where was the there's a default value, but why is this erroring out? Is available starting with PHP 8. So that's why. Oh. Property fetch analyzer is local property. Node name resolver that resolves the node name. Oh man. Better node finder. Value object. No. Stub static reflection. I remember that somewhere in here I was able to find the values. But that's not going to happen. All right. Let's just back out of here for a bit. Sorry, I'm trying to think of what I could do. Let's see. Let's do code projects PHP Storm projects PHP Drupal Rector. I need to pop open Drupal Rector really quick and see where I did something like this before. Was it in this UI? So notice the add collector, method call. It's got the arguments. Okay, so somewhere in here, node factory, this so this get name, no name resolver is object type, node type resolver. Print is at least PHP version. Unwrap statements, append arguments, unwrap the expression, arg, pending arg value. Let's see. Value resolver. That's it. Okay, what is this? Value resolver is inside here. This get value, class const fetch. So, but again, it's on an expression and we're not in an expression, so that's probably why it's not working. Oh, so get value. So yeah, it runs on an expression. Expression get attribute, the class name. Evaluate the expression. Yeah, so we can't use this value resolver because we don't have an expression. We're dealing with a statement. This is really getting me. So we got class type. So class type get property, which is the same as scope get property reflection. Get class name traverse to array. Can access constants. Describe equals. Get callable parameter acceptors. Get constants. Get method. Get offset value type. Get reference classes. Get unresolved property prototype. I don't think there's anything in there. The property reflection. Resolved. Template type map. Empty. Empty. That's just going down a rabbit hole. So property reflection. Get. Do you get readable type? So that default properties. Oh, geez. Try to copy that. That didn't work. So get default properties is what I have down here, and or get properties. But actually, if I read this correctly, this is only available in. Oh wait, never mind. This method only works for static properties when it's used on internal classes. All right, maybe it will work. Protected inherent property. Oh, all right. Let's do that. What if we did get default properties? Oh, all right. Let's go through here. Let's just the reflection, class type, get class reflection. Let's back all this up. We need to do this is an array of properties. Get an array of default properties with the key being the name of the property. All right, let's try this out. Let's hit stop. Thank you for that link. Because I was going down a rabbit hole of rabbit holes. Oh, it helps if I put a breakpoint to be able to test. So yeah, so the get properties had the array, but it wasn't keyed, so it was like impossible to go through. Default theme. Oh, this is so much easier. Jeez. All right, so let's do default properties. So let's do if not is set. Right here. Let's do default theme equals default properties, default theme, and we'll do I just thought like there would have been I was doing that get properties, but and we were seeing where it had the default, but then I called some method and that method gave a warning saying it was only available on PHP 8. So I must have navigated to some other thing. I don't know what I did. So let's rerun this. And then we can debug the test or run the test, and hopefully we'll have this fixed. All right, so the debugger hits. Default theme is Stark. So if default theme equal to null or is equal to, yeah, it should be null. Or we'll say an empty string. Return the text, which I set up in the test as this. All right, let's just run this test in full. So we have the three methods. One where it's missing. Let's see. So yeah, this should fail. And there we go. It actually worked. Let's just do some, let's run the, let's run the third data set with the debugger running. And see what we get. Perfect. Gosh, thank you for finding that link, because I was just going down the rabbit hole and trying to. All right, let's clean this up a bit. So namespace parts. I wonder if this is still the right way to go, or if we can say, let's go to the broker. Ooh. Broker. Let's see. Has class, get class, has anonymous name, resolve function name, get. Nope. I was just wondering if we should do something more so that says like, yes, this does extend. Well, we can do node extends. Get. Actually, let's say class type, get ancestor with class name. What does that do? is set current ancestors, describe cache current ancestors. Oh, could we try doing that where we say Drupal let's see. I want to test something. Let's copy the reference. I wonder what happens when we do this. Let's see the debugger. Let's run it there. Because that might be a little bit more less hacky than inspecting the namespace names. If we're able to say get ancestor with this class name, so let's just step into it. So the class name is there. This reflection, description, that's its cache, the broker. Reach this interface. Oh, parent. Test is object type. So really, if we did, let's see, I need to pick a test that exists. So let's do copy the reference, stop. 1, test 2. What I want to check here is if this is an easier way to determine if something extends browser test space. So I'm assuming test 1 will be object type and test 2 will be null. If that's the case, I can clean up all of this stuff up here. So test 1, we get object type. Test 2, we get null. Awesome. So let's back and browser test base ancestor equals this, and we'll say if browser test base ancestor is equal to null, return an empty error. So we can skip that. We can delete these two. Resolve type by name. So we do need this assertion because we want to assert that the type is there. Beyond an assertion, we could do an instance of check, but I don't think we need to go that far into it. So the reflection, default properties, I think this is about as good as it can get. Holy cow. That was a trip, and I'm really bummed. I wanted to get more done today. I do these streams for about 2 hours, but I guess this is a pretty big win for some sites. So that passed. Let's do PHP vendor bin, PHPStan. Let's analyze this before I push it. No errors. PHPCS. All right. So let's just review the diff. Okay, so this is the new rule. Runs on a class, checks all that stuff. We added it to the .neon, and then our test, we've got the 3 test fixtures, and we've got the rule. So detect undefined default theme property. Fixes, what does this fix? We got too many tabs. 191. So let's push. Oh, thank you all for tuning in for this wonderful little bit. I know previously I had talked about how I was halting PHP Stan Drupal development due to funding. I hope this explains why, or this is like a little insight into why that is the case that I had halted it until I received some funding. Um, it's not exactly the easiest thing in the world to do. Uh, let's see, let's create the pull request, submit it. Should get the linked pull request here in a second. Tried using their boards and doesn't. I don't understand how their boards work. So this is one reason I made the sponsorship drive, because this is a lot of work. I mean, it took an hour and a half, or about probably an hour and 15 minutes to just figure out this one detection rule. This is probably the easiest problem. Honestly, usually they're a lot harder when it comes down to a bunch of auto-loading things. But I'm just excited that this will go through. Let's see. Bummer. I really wanted to try to get to another one. So check. So this one is nice. Report change service name. This should be working, but one thing that I want to try to look at is this one. I didn't think it'd be possible, but what we need to be able to do is check that anything which uses a pre-render callback has these two interfaces implemented. This is a very Drupal-y thing, so I'm going to go search for it. It's like here, basically, I want to see if we can read an array, and it says that it has the pre-render, and then read the value, and see if that callback is, so it should have a trusted callback in here. I have no idea if that's going to be feasible, but we'll find out. Hopefully and maybe. So while, no, we got a failure. Definitely not happening today. But the idea was to see if we could read an array and see if that key exists. And if the key exists, find out if its value implements those interfaces. But we've got another error going on here. Wait. Resolve type by name must be an instance of name null given on our new test, line 25. Ooh, that was the test. We need this to be here. Line 25, node namespace name. So thanks, PHPStan, for thinking that it's going to exist. So when it's reading, because it's an anonymous class. So if node namespace name was argument one pass must be an instance of name null given. So the problem is that this property doesn't say null on it. So let's make a quick. What class is that again? On class like. So let's go to lib node statement and then name, or sorry, class like. We'll update this to be null. Specify our type hint that namespace name may be null if not set. The namespace name may be null if not set. So like when name resolver is not used. Not used. Make. No, whatever. I'll propose this. Create the pull request. Create it. It's like a minor nit, but oh well. It technically doesn't specify that it could be null, so we'll do that. And if I push this fix, let's just do get status, add source. I'm just gonna amend my commit and do a force push for that quick fix. All right. So once this passes, I'm going to merge it. I'm going to create a new request or new release, which will have this fix released and allow detecting the undefined default theme property. While that runs, I want to look at some things inside of PHP Parser. So I'm assuming we got parser and we have node. I think assigning a value. I'm trying to figure out how to read an array. If the array item, this might be it. The key and the value. Get type. So that might be it. Maybe it's inside array item for reading that. Check array item and see if the key is pre-render. So that could be a way to run it. Let's see, I should have made that as an issue somewhere. So actually, let me open it up. It might not be impossible. The callback doesn't have to be an array. The callback can be a closure or must be a class which implements the interface, but it's in a render array itself. That's the main thing. Is for me, the hard part isn't parsing the value. It's even finding out if we can read that a render array has that in it. And I think this might be the expression. Might need to listen on node type. So I think if we look at the array item, if we say that our rule targets that node type, I think we could catch if it has a pre-render statement. I got time. All right, I'm gonna take some time to just quick see if we can get that to work because this is passing. So let's merge and delete my branch, and let's go ahead and create a new release. Let's see, we had there. I'm going to open edit so I've got access to copy and paste. Let's draft a new release. 12.12. Let's copy some of this fanciness over here. So it's the feature is that we can verify, and let's get a bug. The bug fix is that anonymous classes trigger errors. Looks good to me. Let's publish that release. Release is out. Thanks for your patience. And I'll actually go to their issue as well. They linked it somewhere. Mentioned this issue here. The release is out, which should fix the breakage in 0.12.11. Sorry about that. All right. So that's been fixed. We've got that out. Meta here. Let's look at where is it? Here it is. So you gotta fix the target branch, and what we'll do is we'll make a issue fork to bump the upgrade status module to use this latest release. So let's go open the GitLab IDE on Drupal.org, do the web IDE, composer.json, and we just give it the bump. I'm going to bump it up, commit, and open the merge request, and give it a little good old refresh. There, test job is running. Let's put needs review. And just tagged that which adds a rule to check for default theme. All right. So there. I'm happy about that. That will help folks in their Drupal 8 to Drupal 9 upgrade process. I've got 9 minutes before I usually end the stream. So let's see if we can get this to work. What we can do is let's just play around real quick. Do a poll. So let's go to our fixtures. PHPStan fixture. What's in here? Let's do a pre-render callback. Wait, render array with pre-render callback. Take that, Java. How about that for a class name? Let's do namespace, Drupal, PHPStan fixtures, final class, render array. Don't know. Doesn't need to be in a class, but we will. Let's just do public function. Let's get all fancy with this. So let's do return. Type is link. URL is URL from route. Front. Title. I think that's, I don't know. It's not like it's actually gonna get rendered. So now let's do pre-render is public static function pre-render callback. I don't remember what it all looks like. So we would do, it'd be self class pre-render callback. Let's go the full boat, implements pre-render Render callback interface. Nope, that's not it. Trusted callback. There we go. So this is going to be tricky, because technically we would need to invoke the trusted callbacks and see if the value in here matches what's in here too. I think we can do it. So we've got the file. Let's go ahead and just do actually, I don't know how I would do this. Let's see. Let's just copy this and we'll say pre-render callback rule test. Doesn't exist yet, but we'll render. Let's yield the file of PHPStan fixtures, source, render array. So we've got this here. Let's just run the test. Nothing's going to happen because we don't have a rule. But what we can do is create a rule quick. Say Drupal. What I name this? Let's just call it pre-render rule callback. There's no errors. So that's fine. We'll delete that. New file, pre-render callback rule. I never remember what namespace I gave it. I hijacked part of PHPStan's. So final class, pre-render callback rule. Just copy these use statements because I need them anyways. So final blah implements rule. So I think we're just going to always return an array. So I have no idea what we're dealing with. So I think if we do return array or node, why is this T node type always? So node, what was it? Expression array item? I don't know. Let's see. So I think if we do this array item, it works. Let's go debug and just see what happens. This is either going to catch or not. And it did not. So let's do array. And see. Nope. Oh. Let's try this. Now we can't just... Let's see if that catches. And maybe it's because it's not an expression, it's actually a... All right. I know one way that we can find out. If we do a node statement class. So if we go like this, we don't actually want to target a whole class, but this is like a little cheater method to find out all the... Oh, damn it. I know why. God, yet again. Because I didn't put it inside this extensions. Copy the reference. Man. All right. Let's do the debugger because now it'll actually catch. So I'm going to keep it at targeting the class because I can at least take the node and look at the statements. Class method. So this class method name should be foobar. which has its own statements, which is an expression of a sign. All right, so we have the return. Let's see here. So we have the return, which returns the build variable. It's great. We have the assign, so variable, and the expression is array, which items are array item. So array item is the one to go for. And if we look at here, the key name is pre-render. Bang. Array item. So I was right earlier in my assumption. So let's go ahead and assert that the node is an instance of array item. Name equals node get key. Get type, get attributes. I don't know why that didn't populate anything. Oh, because it's a public value. So node item, key is a string. So let's do key equals node key. But key could be null. So let's do key. So if key is equal to null, return an empty array. Replacements, value is type. Otherwise, we do if key. So if key is equal to null, all right, so key is string. So I guess that's the one thing we have to do. So key is not an instance of string. We return key value. All right, so there we're just going to say if it's not a string because it has to be, we know that it has to be an associated array. If it's not an associative array, we can't use it. So the key has to be a string. So key value is type. So then we say if key value is not equal to pre-render, return the empty array. Let's reload it. And while I'm at it, get new branch, pre-render callback check. This went better than I thought so far. All right, so we've got the key. We're here. The node is pre-render. We've got our value, which has a class constant fetch. All right. So value equals node value scope. So this is one where it'd be nice to have a way to easily evaluate the value. So we have a few options here, I'm guessing, where it could be a callable, it could be an array, it could be several values. So let's actually go ahead and we got bar, we got bar as pre-render is let's find usages, anything that does not have, someone's got to have a, here we go. Oh, so I actually had that. I have a bad definition here because it needs to be wrapped in an array itself. So we have let's rename these methods. So static callback. Function current time. What? Well, who knows? I guess that's not an actual function, but we'll just try that out. So we can have static callback. We can have it with a function. Callback, and we can have a closure callback. So this, you can also have it be a so it could also be this. So I add them to this one file because if we go and we debug the test again, I should be able to detect all the different values. And I'm going to do that, and then I do need to call it so I can go shoot items array item. So actually, we need a pre-render is an array. So value, what is value? Value is, so if so we can do if value is not an instance of array, we can return the pre-render render array value expects an array of callbacks. So that's an array all on its own. If it's not an array, you know, we could make that be another rule, but we'll just leave that as is. So value items. So then we have to loop through all of the items, which is an array item. So if we do for each item, top equals null, we'd say errors equals, and we'll return the errors, right? Oh, wait, actually, oh, shoot. Yeah, because we have to go down into it. We can't just find, okay, yeah. So I was thinking like, oh, well, these all are array items, so we don't need to stop up here and go and traverse in, but we do because we need to only process things that belong to the pre-render array key. So let's go ahead and refresh. So we need to collect errors against any of the pre-render values that are there. So item key is null, which is expected. So value. So let's get the pre-render item value equals item value. So if pre-render item value is instance of array to do, hit play. It only ran once, but there should be like the 3 different methods. this. So there's the class constant fetch, which we know. So the class constant fetch means that we know that it's calling itself. And then here we can know that it's calling the name. Errors is there. All right, here we go. So we're getting the item. So string. So if pre-render value item instance of string to do look up the function, and then we should have there we go, closure. So if instance of closure I guess if it's a closure, there should be no error to do anything at all. To do, so actually let's do else if. So these should all be else if statements. We should say else to do report error because it's unexpected. Yes, is one thing that we could do there. So we could provide so we could actually provide rules that perform static analysis against render arrays. Cannot access property value on null. What? So let's just assert item instance of. All right, item, or rather, if item equal to null, continue. That should fix that warning. All right, so I think this is a good start. I'm gonna push this branch up, and maybe this will be what I work on another day. So let's create a GitHub issue before I go. Let's do issues, add new. That. Actually, I did a quick experiment, and I think we can make this a rule in PHPStan Drupal. All right, so 197. So let's just add that. Initial rule to process pre-render callbacks for 197. I'm tagging it this way because I'm going to forget that I made this branch. So let's push it. I hope this was fun. I hope it was interesting and you learned a few things about working with PHPStan and the abstract syntax tree processing. So here we go. So I've got this list here. Am I able to pin this? Yeah, I'm going to pin it. That way I'll forget. Pinning allows me to just keep it up here because I'll forget about it as I usually do. These are other things I need to work on. There's a lot to be done. But my main focus has been trying to help the upgrade status module be as full as it can be for people who are upgrading. So we got one item done. I was hoping for more, but I think this is a pretty big one on its own. Composer require failure. No. No matching package found. malarkey. There's a 12. But since I'm not able to... Wait. I don't think my release broke something. I think this just ran before it published on packages. So that's what I'm going to do, add and retest. And just retest it and we'll see. It was just saying that the error just said that the release didn't exist, but it exists here. So hopefully that's all there is to it. Yeah, that's all I've got. Thanks for tuning in. I'll probably work on that array syntax one next week, Wednesday. Yeah, because that's actually really interesting to go through. What I'll be working on Friday, so for Friday's hack and play, which I do on at like 3 p.m., I'm actually going to work on this issue where we're going to test PHP 8 compatibility while running on PHP 7.4 for Drupal. So it works. It's not very pretty right now. So what we have to do is run PHPStan with the version hard-coded, and then at level 5. But the problem is when you run on level 5, you're getting all these other errors reported that aren't relevant to PHP 8. So you have to run it twice. You have to run it once to get the baseline errors, to run it against as PHP 8, collect those errors, and then find a difference, which is a pain in the butt. So I'm going to see if we can make that be a little bit faster. So that will be what I work on Friday at 3. Thanks for tuning in today. And if any of my GitHub sponsors are tuning in, thank you so much for granting me the time to work on this. And yeah, have a good one, everybody.